Boker Tov, everyone. Hi. Good morning. I apologize. I had to change the schedule a few weeks ago. But a few weeks ago, we began a series, I would say, on the topic of Beit Hamikdash. And thanks to Adar Bet this year, we're still in the parashat of the Mishkan. Weeks later, we haven't finished yet. We started in Truma, Tetzaveh, Kitisa, Vayakel, Pekudei. So we're really still in the weeks that are discussing the Binyah, the Mishkan, which, if you think about it, really spread over 5 weeks, 5 parashot. And a few weeks ago, just a quick reminder, we learned together about the source to build a Hamikdash. In the Shir, we saw 2 different psukim that the Rambam quotes, Vasuli Mikdash from Sefer Shmot, and we also brought the pasuk from Sefer Dvarim that the Rambam quotes in Hot Melachim about it's my memory of Parsha. It's in Re'eh, yes. Sorry? No, the Shichnot Tidrshu Uvat Hashama, right? The Shichnot Tidrshu Uvat Hashama, which we said is another pasuk, parallel pasuk for the source to build a Mikdash. We discussed why the 2 psukim. We spoke about the Mishkan versus the Mikdash. If you remember, we spoke about the function of the Mishkan, maybe more for Am Yisrael, Yitzat Mitzrayim, while the Mikdash symbolizes perhaps something much greater. It's something to do more with creation of the world and bringing all the world together to Yerushalayim, Chag Sukkot versus Chag Pesach. We spoke about that in the beginning. What we didn't finish that time was a question which I want to continue today, which is there a mitzvah nowadays to build the Mikdash? We spoke about that there is such a mitzvah that appears in the Torah, but is it a practical mitzvah? Is it a mitzvah that we should strive to keep in our days or not? Or is it just some kind of hilchata de Mashiach? Is it some kind of law that we are waiting for the Mashiach to fulfill, but not for us? And there are a few components in this question. Question 1 is who are chayav in this mitzvah? Let's say we could do it tomorrow morning. Is it a mitzvah on men and women? On everyone? Who is chayav in this mitzvah? Like we ask in every question, every mitzvah we have, we can ask that question. Are women, men chayav, kohanim, levim? Who is chayav in that mitzvah? The other component of this question would be whether or not it really is a mitzvah that is applicable nowadays, which could be divided into a more machshava kind of question, more a philosophical, theological question. Is it really something that it's supposed to be done by us, by humans, or by God? And obviously, if the answer perhaps is that it's by us, does that mean that we have to wait for Mashiach or nowadays? So I want to begin with the first question, and it's not in your source sheet. I'm going back to what we learned a few weeks ago. It's not here. I apologize, but we have to finish up from last time. Are women chayav or pater from building the Mikdash? Anyone have a suggestion? Yes?
Well, they had to bring their jewelry to the...
They had to bring the jewelry to the Mishkan.
And also to the Egel HaZahav.
To the Egel HaZahav, right. Okay, that might serve as a source that women volunteered. In the Psukim it says very clearly that the women participated, perhaps even more than the men.
And a korban after they give birth.
So women are chayav to maybe bring a korban. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're chayav to build the Beis Hamikdash. Right? Okay? And so the truth is that this is a very interesting question that became quite famous because of the Rambam, who in one halacha brings together 2, perhaps it seems from first glance, 2 different halachot, brings them in the same halacha, and they have something to do with each other. In the beginning of this halacha, the Rambam writes...
Are you talking about the Mikdash?
The Mikdash. The Mikdash. Is there a mitzvah today for women to build, for the future? Are women chayav to build the Beis Hamikdash? We said, Vasuli Mikdash, there's a chiyuv to build the Beis Hamikdash. My question right now, does that include women?
It's not women's work.
Okay? So, yes.
Isn't the question who pays?
Who pays?
No, really. They say women. If you say the women should be home in the kitchen, where are they supposed to have the money?
So is it really just about volunteering? Is it about building, taking a material, building it?
But you have to pay for it. You have to get the material.
And I mean, I don't know if that's really what we're talking about right now, right? We're talking more about the chiyuv, the mitzvah, to actually physically build the Hamikdash. Is that a mitzvah that would apply to women as well as men? Yes.
Okay. Everybody was at Har Sinai,
Okay.
right? And they heard the commandments.
Okay.
And they also heard that one should wear tzitzit, right?
Okay.
And tefillin.
Right.
Are women chayav to do that? They were there to hear it all.
Right. So, but the Torah itself that was given to us, it sometimes tells us we should apply only to Kohanim, only to Levim, only to women, only to men. There are certain mitzvot that apply to different types of groups within Am Yisrael.
But that isn't what happened originally.
Yeah, but that why? When it was given to certain people.
So if
Right? When it was given, it wasn't later on. It was given from the beginning. Women are not chayv in all mitzvot. Men are not chayv in all mitzvot. Right? So I don't want to go to this. I don't want to go into this theological right now discussion about men and women, if that's okay. That will leave someone else to do. I want to go into the question: are women chayv with the Beit Hamikdash? And just 1 second.
Let's hear what the Rambam has to
I
say.
will quote the Rambam. The Rambam says that there is the mitzvah to build the Beit Hamikdash is only in the daytime. Only in the daytime, not at nighttime. There's no mitzvah to build the Beit Hamikdash at night. By the way, the Beit Hamikdash did not function at night. It was a good Jewish job. It opened in the morning, closed early afternoon, and then people went home. There was nothing. The Beit Hamikdash was closed at night. It was even at the Korban Tamid.
It closed when the sun went down.
Even before, way before the sun went down. When the Korban Tamid was sacrificed, which could have been the 9th hour of the day, which is way before Shkita, it was already closed. They went home. There was nothing going on the Beit Hamikdash at night. By the way, that's an interesting question. Why? And back to ramifications. But right now, the Rambam says there's a mitzvah to build the temple only in the daytime, not at nighttime. And at the same halacha, the Rambam says women are chayav to build the Mikdash.
He's contradicting
Just like men.
He's contradicting himself because it's time
Mitzvah, everyone that reads that Rambam right away notices the contradiction. Because we have a rule in Masechet Kiddushin, the Mishnah says, that women are usually exempt from time-bound mitzvot. Usually, a woman is pater from shofar. Why? Because you only blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah. It's a time-bound mitzvah. Women are pater from sukkah, because it only applies in sukkahs. Women are pater from tefillin, because it's only a daytime mitzvah. But the Rambam, in the same breath, where he teaches us that Beis Hamikdash, the mitzvah, is a daytime mitzvah, is telling us at the same breath that women are chayav. This led to very famous, well-known discussions in the Achronim to try to understand this somehow contradiction of the Rambam. I'm not going to give a shir on this today. I'm just going to mention 2 to 3 famous answers, which I think are very important. One is a very lumdisha answer. It's a very good answer in the world of lumdus, and I'll explain what it is. This question goes into the question of what is a time-bound mitzvah. I made it sound very simple. A mitzvah that's time-bound, that women are pater from, is a mitzvah that applies certain times, like the daytime, like on a chag, and not in other times. But it's not so simple. There is a Gemara in Masechet Kiddushin that teaches us that women are pater from performing a brit milah on their children. And the Gemara teaches us that there's a pasuk. That teaches us this, that women are not obligated to perform a bris on their children. So everyone asks, why do I need a pasuk? It's a time-bound mitzvah. Very simple. So the truth is, why is it a time-bound mitzvah?
During the day.
Oh, so I was sure someone would say to me, is it the 8th day, 9th day? No, that doesn't make it really to a time-bound mitzvah. Because once the 8th day goes by, you're chayav to do a bris milah. But the Tosfot says, Tzipora is a good question. Right? Tzipora is a good question. Is a good question about Tzipora, but put that on the side right now. We're not going to be sharing now about bris milah for women, if that's okay, by women. But Tosfot says it's a day. There's no chiyuv to give a bris at night. We don't do brises at night. We only do a bris in the daytime. So a bris is a time-bound mitzvah. So if that's true, women are patur from performing a bris. So why do I need a pasuk to teach me that women are patur from giving a bris when it's a rule that women are patur from time-bound mitzvah? Good question, right? Very good question. I'm not going to go into there's famous answers for that too. The Tabory Evan, an Achron, the Shagas Aryeh, gave a very important answer. He said, what is a time-bound mitzvah? A time-bound mitzvah is not a mitzvah that you don't perform at night. Rather, it's a mitzvah that the night cancels the mitzvah. I'll give you an example. We only put tefillin on in the day, not at night. So it comes night, there's no mitzvah of tefillin. The next morning when we wake up, there's a new mitzvah to put on tefillin. It's not the same mitzvah of last night. It's a new mitzvah. What does the night do? The night stopped the former mitzvah, yesterday's mitzvah. It stopped it and said, now we're moving to the next mitzvah of tefillin, the next day. So tefillin is a time-bound mitzvah. The idea of night and day is a time-bound issue. But in a bris milah, the night is not a function of making to time-bound. Why? Because let's say a kid on the 8th day didn't have a bris. He wasn't well, I don't know. So that night, they say, the doctor says we can give him a bris. You give him a bris? No, we don't give a bris that night. The next morning, you have to give him a bris?
No.
Yes, next morning, you have to give him a bris. Whenever you can give him a bris, give him a bris. 9th day, right? What? It's a different mitzvah than the day before? No. The mitzvah of bris milah continued from the 8th day on till you give him a bris. We don't give a bris at night. The night doesn't stop the mitzvah, doesn't start a new mitzvah. All it does, it puts it on pause. If the function of night or day are just to pause the mitzvah and not to renew the mitzvah, that is not a time-bound mitzvah, says the Tabory Evan. That's why I need a pasuk for bris milah to teach me that women are patur from bris milah, because the function of the night pauses a mitzvah, but it's the same mitzvah that renews itself the next morning. It's not a new mitzvah that wasn't there before.
So you could say the same about tefillin.
No.
Why?
Because tefillin, in the morning that you wake up, it's a new chiyuv that you didn't have yesterday. It's not one chiyuv of tefillin. Every day, it's a new chiyuv of tefillin. If you missed putting on tefillin yesterday, that's it, you missed it. You missed the mitzvah of tefillin. The night stopped the mitzvah. As if there's a mitzvah on the 14th, right, to put on tefillin, just like there is to build a sukkah on a certain day. Came the night, the mitzvah is over. You can never do that mitzvah again. Tomorrow will be the 15th. Okay? So, we can use this idea for women and Beit Hamikdash. When we say we don't build the Beit Hamikdash at night, is that stopping the mitzvah? And saying every day there's a new mitzvah about the Beit Hamikdash? No. All it's saying is, at night, we don't build the Beit Hamikdash. It's on pause. There's one mitzvah to build the Beit Hamikdash. It begins every morning again, the same mitzvah. It's not a new mitzvah. The night puts it on pause. That's why, even though we don't build the Mikdash at night, it doesn't turn it into a time-bound mitzvah. And that's why women are chayav. That's a well-known idea that people use. However, by the way, there are so many answers to this question. I'm not going to give a shir about this. I just want you to be aware. This is a very interesting question about time-bound mitzvot and women and Beit Hamikdash. I'll give you one other answer that Rabbi Shaviv from Alon Shvut, he died a few years ago, a big Talmid Chacham, a friend of my family's. He wrote a big thing about this. He wanted to claim that the reason why women are chayav to build the Beit Hamikdash is because in the world of mitzvot, we differentiate between mitzvot on the individual and mitzvot on the tzibur. This is a famous question. For example, there might be a mitzvah. This is very right now flammable kind of material I'm about to talk about killing Amalek. If there would be a mitzvah to kill Amalek, who is a mitzvah on? If you tomorrow morning would walk in the street and see an Amaleki, and the guy comes out with a certificate, DNA, he is an Amaleki.
And he has the spirit in his hand.
Right? So should you take out your gun and kill him? Because it's a mitzvah to kill Amalek? Is it a mitzvah on the individual? Or is it a mitzvah on the klal, the tzibur? That's a famous discussion, which I'm not going to go into. I'm sure you once heard about the famous, we're talking about Purim now, and Amalek. You ever read about some guy wrote a satire about what would have happened if today, nowadays, we would find a Amaleki who would be willing to give himself up for the Jews to keep the mitzvah of killing Amalek.
Well, that sounded
And it goes on for pages and pages because the Jewish community cannot decide how to kill him, when to kill him, what to do with skila, the sreifa, the hereg, the chenek, which rabbi would do the bracha, which rabbi would be the sandik. There's a whole discussion about it. It goes on and on and on until the guy dies of 120, and the Jews just couldn't figure it out. It's quite a cynical kind of look at sometimes when we, it's a good, I think it's funny. But anyway, going back to our discussion right now. So some people say that in the mitzvah of Amalek, there might be two components. A mitzvah on the yachid and a mitzvah on the tzibur. Appointing a king. Appointing a melech. There's a mitzvah to appoint a melech. What? Is that a mitzvah that we all have to go do right now? If we could, appoint a melech? Of course not. It's a mitzvah on the tzibur. Milchama is a mitzvah on the tzibur. It's a mitzvah on the people, not an individual mitzvah. This is a very famous idea that the people who count mitzvot have that chiluk. The Rishonim already do this chiluk between mitzvot tziburiot and mitzvot on the yachid. This, by the way, has a very important nafkamina. For example, the mitzvah of Yeshuv Eretz Yisrael, settling the land of Israel, there's a lot of room to say that there's two components here. There's a mitzvah on the yachid and mitzvah on the tzibur. There's a lot of discussion about this in many mitzvot. Building the Beit Hamikdash is for sure not a mitzvah on an individual. It's not a mitzvah on each one of us right now, if we can, to go and get a permit to build a temple. It's a mitzvah on the tzibur. So Rav Shavid wants to argue that women are always chayav in mitzvot of the tzibur. And he says this is the example of a mitzvah that really, at first glance, as the Rambam himself says, it's a time-bound mitzvah and therefore women should be pater, but because it's a mitzvah on the community, as someone just said, women are part of the community and therefore women should be chayav here too. And there might be other examples to other mitzvot that women would be chayav because they're part. The famous example is Hakel. Every 7 years we have to gather at the Beit Hamikdash after Sukkot time, and after Shemitah, Sukkot time, and they hear the Torah being read, and women are chayav. That's a classic time-bound mitzvah. Women are chayav because it's a mitzvah on the tzibur.
Exception because the Torah explicitly says.
I agree with you. That's a very good question. I didn't want to go into that. That's a very good question. I agree with you. 100%. I agree with you more than what I agree with myself. But I don't want to bring that up. But let's continue. Okay. So I brought up two answers today. Two possible answers to this famous contradiction in the Rambam, in which we try to explain the Rambam's opinion. Why are women chayav? Okay. So men and women are chayav to build the Beit Hamikdash. Okay. Now my question is it a mitzvah on us to build the Beit Hamikdash? So the truth is that this is a very well-known machloket that people always like to begin it with the Rashi Masechet Sukkah. The Gemara Masechet Sukkah talks about Chadash. Chadash is something that really only Chutzar people know more about. In Israel, Israelis don't know what Chadash is. Briskers may know it. Briskers in America might know what it is, but more. But the Chutzarts, Chadash, you're not allowed to eat new wheat from that hasn't seen a Pesach in its lifetime. Every wheat that we eat has to see a Pesach, has to celebrate Pesach as if, right? So, for example, if there's new wheat right now in the markets that grew in the summer, this past summer, and now was out in the markets. According to the Torah, you're not allowed to eat anything made from that wheat. I'm sure you all know that in Chutz La'aretz, Rabbi Soloveitchik, as if made people aware of this halacha, which is in Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam, that it applies even in Chutz La'aretz. Anyone here from Chicago? Oh, so I'm sure you know Chicago. Chicago is probably the most famous place, I think, in North America that really kept Chadash because of Rabbi Soloveitchik. And nowadays, it's easier to find in America today bakeries that sell only stale products, right? We sell yasham. Only Jews can put that on their window. We sell stale products in the bakery. And so the Gemara talks about you're allowed to eat from the new wheat when? On the first day of Chol Hamoed. On the first day of Chol Hamoed, which is a bit weird because that's when we eat matzah and who has bakeries open. But anyway, on the first day of Chol Hamoed, you're allowed to eat. What allows you to eat it? The Korban Omer. The Korban Omer. Usartem lachem, right? We count the 50 days from the Omer that's brought that morning. That night. The Nafat Omer is done. And from that morning that they sacrifice the Korban Omer, it's mutter. How would people know when it is? So they had a text going out, a WhatsApp call going out at 10 o'clock in the morning. The Korban Omer was sacrificed. You can now all eat from the new wheat. But there's no Beit Hamikdash today. So when is allowed? When can we eat the Omer from? So Rabbi ben Zakkai made a takana because he made a takana that we have to wait a bit. Why? Because he was afraid that, let's say, Beit Hamikdash will be built this year, and they won't have time. They'll build it in the morning, and Korban Omer will only be sacrificed at 4 p.m. Right? And people will say, "Oh, last year we ate the new wheat already at the Nates at 5 o'clock in the morning. We ate the new tevuah because there's no Beit Hamikdash." They'll forget that you have to wait for the Korban Omer. So what does he do? A takana, you have to wait a day. So now, between you and me, it's very strange, right? The Gemara says, "What? When are we going to build the Beit Hamikdash? At night? You don't build it at night. On Yom Tov, on Pesach, what is he so scared of?" Now, between you and me, the answer I think is very simple. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, if you look at this takana, it's a bit strange, but if you look at Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's decrees that he made, a whole list of them, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was one of those Jews that lived in one of the most crucial moments, the crucial junctions in Jewish history. We owe so much to that man. I think one of the greatest men in Jewish history. He stood at Mamash, I don't want to use the word Holocaust, Lashav. I really don't, because it's a very bad word to use out of the context. But he lived in one of the most tragic times in Jewish history. Churban Beit Hamikdash, the despair, the feeling that it's all over. And what is the future of religion? A religion that was based on Avodat Hashem in the Mikdash has to now, it can't wait a few years. We have to change our mindset of how we're going to continue being religious Jews, performing Torah and mitzvot outside the temple. It is an amazing a crisis to deal with. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the right man at the right time to make sure that ma'avar, that transition, thank you very much, from Beit HaMikdash to a world without Beit HaMikdash, a world of tefillah, of Torah, Yom Kippur, all these are something very different. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made takanot, decrees, that would keep alive the hope that Mehera Yibaneh Beit HaMikdash. I don't think he was really scared. Oh, we're going to miss the Omer for that hour. But he wanted to install in people the idea that at any moment, be ready. Because at any moment, we have to be ready for the Beit HaMikdash, for Mashiach. I think that's really what's behind his decree. Nevertheless, the Gemara discusses there, the Beit HaMikdash, when it'll be built. Rashi there says, what are you talking about? We have a tradition, says Rashi, that the third temple will come crashing down from the Shema. Now that's a very important Rashi, because Rashi holds, therefore, that it's not a mitzvah on us It's a mitzvah that Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to keep one day. We have to wait for it. We have to be ready for it. But there is no mitzvah. Yeah, you should wash your head when you walk in when you walk in the old city. Always look up. You don't know where it's coming at. Without the Shem, yeah. But at any moment it's going to come crashing down. So this Rashi is a very important indication that not everyone agrees that it's going to be created by man. However, last lesson we brought the Rambam. The Rambam says that there's a mitzvah to build the Beit Hamikdash. Hamikdash. The Rambam counts this in his list of mitzvot, which would mean that he believes that the Beit Hamikdash will be man-made and not God-made. I mean, maybe it'll be made in China, but it'll still be made by man. Now, this machloket, by the way, one could argue that it's been going on for 2,000 years. Right? It's a more philosophical machloket, a theological machloket. Should we wait for the Mikdash? Should we wait for Mashiach? Or should we do something to bring him? Is it our? I would say that is one of the biggest machlokes between what we call the Haredi world and the Zionist world.
I thought it was working.
I don't want to go into it right now. But if you notice, I try so hard. I know you can do what you want. I'm going to tell you from my opinion. I have my opinions, but I try very hard when I give shiurim, especially in places where I don't know who people are. I stay very, very
Careful.
Very careful. I'm very careful.
We're very dangerous.
Yes, I know. I have my gun on here. Don't worry. So I would say that this might be a machloket going on in Jewish history. For example, I think we spoke about here did we speak about here about the renewal of the Smicha in 1538 in Tzfat? About the machlok between Yerushalayim and Tzfat, whether or not we should open up a new Sanhedrin. So Professor Jacob Katz, who was a great historian, a great academic, in his book, which is an academic book, I loved it. It's like a drasha he gives. He says, you know what the machlok between Tzfat and Yerushalayim was? Whether or not we should bring Mashiach. He says people of Tzfat says we have to build a Sanhedrin. We have to engage in the world. We have to get involved. And Yerushalayim people said what? We have to wait for Mashiach. It's not a place for human beings to get involved. We wait. We waited. Remember at the end of Fiddler of the Roof, we waited on Defka. We'll wait next place. We wait. That's what Jews do. We wait. It's not true that the Zionist movement were the first ones to think about this, about being active in bringing the Geula. There were way before that Jews throughout Jewish history that thought it's up to humans to be active in bringing the Geula. So that's a theological machloket. But now let's go on to a practical one, which is the sheet in front of you. See, I got to the sheet. Thank God. Is it possible today to build a Mikdash? Is it possible today to sacrifice korbanot? I'm sure you know every year before Pesach, there are some Jews that attempt to sacrifice a lamb. Korban Pesach, there was a few years ago a guy, it's a true story, that was walking through the old city with a lamb, Erev Pesach, and the police were freaking out. What's going to happen? Now, what are you going to do? A guy's walking through through the Jewish quarter with a lamb on his way, and he intends to shecht it and make a korban. So they arrested him for having an animal without a license. That's what they did. So anyway, this thing comes up every year. And my question is
Rabbi,
it?
You got the story wrong.
Oh yeah.
The sheep was taking the man out for a walk.
Okay. So now my question is this something practical? Something real? Is there really a place for us to be halachically active in sacrificing korbanot nowadays? So I'm sure many of you know this is not a new question. It's not even a hypothetical, theoretical. It's a question that was asked seriously over and over the past hundreds of years. We have testimony that the Balei Tosafot, Rabbi Yechiel of Paris, one of the Balei Tosafot, was on his way with this. We have good testimony that he felt at the time that it was correct, and he was on his way to Yerushalayim to sacrifice the Korban Pesach. We'll get there in a second. Recently, Rav Kalisher. Everyone knows that Rav Kalisher. We call Rav Kalisher one of the Mevasrei Tzionut. Historians today claim that political Zionism began in 1880 or around 1882. But the idea, this new idea in the new age of establishing a Jewish state, people wrote about it a little bit earlier. Rav Kalisher, Rav El-Kalai, and the third famous Moshe Hess, which was a German Jew who wasn't religious. But Rav Kalisher and Rav El-Kalai are considered till today, we all know this for Bagrut in 12th grade, right? The three Mevasrei Tzionut, three people who already spoke about that idea in the 18th century. And Rav Kalisher, who was a student of Rabbi Akiva Eger, was a big Talmid Chacham, wrote an entire book called Rishat Zion, challenging in the 18th century his opinion, which is it is possible to sacrifice Korban Pesach nowadays. And he wrote a whole book making this argument. Don't worry, people wrote books against him. And it's just a good opportunity to write books. You write a book, I write a book against you, and then a book against that. There's so many books put out about this. I want to bring up some of the famous sources that are discussed till today, whether or not it would be possible to sacrifice korbanot. So, as someone mentioned, it seems, again, this is arguable, it seems that we have testimony in the Mishnah, in the Talmud, that sacrifices of Korban Pesach were going on even after Korban by chain. For example, in source number 1, on the third line, Amar Yeshua, Shamati Shemakirivim Af Al Pi She'ein Beit. In that source, Rabbi Yeshua says, I heard that we are allowed to sacrifice even without Beit Hamikdash. Meaning, even after the Churban, we don't need the temple itself, but we need a few other functions, perhaps we'll talk about them now, that are good enough to sacrifice. This is a very important source, that the binyan of the Mikdash, l'chora, theoretically does not ma'akev us, does not prevent us from a korban. And as you see in source number 2, the Gemara, the Mishnah, and the Gemara talk about how are you supposed to sacrifice the Korban Pesach. In the third line, Amar Rabbi Tzadok, Ma'aseh beraban Gamliel, she'amar letavi avdo, tze utzle lanu et ha-Pesach ala askala. Everyone knows that Rabban Gamliel had a famous slave called Tavi. It was a righteous Eved. And Rabban Gamliel tells his slave, go and prepare the Korban Pesach on the barbecue for me. Now, Rabban Gamliel, ladies and gentlemen, when did he live? So you might say to me, whoa, there are 2 Rabban Gamliels. Yeah. It's like, anyone here from the Syrian community? Anyone from the Syrian community know? Like if I say, in the Syrian community, like a guy like Joey Towel. I was on a plane a few months ago, and the guy next to me says to me, Shalom Aleichem, I'm from the Syrian community, my name is Joey Towel. I said, nice to meet you. And then the guy next to me says to me, I'm also from the Jewish community, my name is Joey Tawil. And they said to me, oh, you might know our nephew, Joey Tawil, right? So we know that there are certain names in certain communities, in certain times, that repeat themselves. Rabban Gamliel had a son called Rabbi Shimon, who had a son called Gamliel, who had a son named Shimon. And he had a son named Gamliel, right? This went on and on and on. So it's not very clear which Rabban Gamliel this is. We all know. Rashi here points out that this is a Rabban Gamliel that lived in the time of Rabbi Akiva. Remember the story about Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva and Rabban Gamliel at the time made fun of Rabbi Yeshua, and he got upset. Gemara in Brachos, and they had a big fight, and Rabbi Akiva went and made shalom. So that Rabban Gamliel, if that's the Rabban Gamliel, we're talking about what year?
After Churban.
After Churban Beit Sheni. Rabbi Akiva lived in the Bar Kokhba rebellion, 135. So we're talking years after there's no Beit Hamikdash, and if this is the same Rabban Gamliel, this means that Rabban Gamliel was sacrificing Korban Pesach when there was no Mikdash. So you can argue, no, it's not the same Rabban Gamliel. It's his great-grandson, Rabban Gamliel, who lived, his great-grandfather, who lived way before that. There was a Rabban Gamliel, Nasi, of the grandson of Hillel, was Rabban Gamliel, who lived in times of the Mikdash. I think the grandson of Hillel, I think, right? So, and maybe he also had a slave called Tavi. I don't know. Maybe Tavi was like a well-known name for slaves. Maybe the same way Rabban Gamliel had Rabbi Shavai say this. Maybe the same way Rabbi Gamliel had a grandson named Rabban Gamliel, Tavi had a grandson named Tavi. Who knows? Maybe that was also common in the slave family. So it's not very clear. It's not very clear which Rabban Gamliel this is, but it's an interesting source. There are other sources that quote also Tanaim that seem to sacrifice Korban Pesach. Again, not clear when they lived. There's a famous Gemara in Pesach. I didn't bring it. The Gemara says that there was a non-Jew who he loved this idea that he would beat the system, and he would always every year go to Beit Hamikdash on Pesach, and he would eat Korban Pesach. So he says to Chachamim, and they said to him, "What do you mean? You're not a Jew. You can't eat Korban Pesach. Kol ben echad lo yochal bo." He says, "Ha! They don't know. It's amazing. I go there. They don't ask me for any Tudat Zehut. I go there. I do the I speak the language, and they give me this nice big Korban Pesach. I eat it great." So Rabbi ben Betera, the Gemara says, was not very happy about this, but he didn't know what to do. This was in outside of Israel. So Rabbi ben Betera said to him, "Tell me, you think they don't know who you are? Ha! Of course they know who you are. Have you ever eaten the tail of the Korban Pesach?" He said, "No." He said, "You see, they know that you're not Jewish. Because if they knew that you were a Jew, they would give you the best piece. The best piece is the tail." Now we all know the tail of the Korban Pesach is burnt on no one eats it. You can't eat it. It's burnt on the Mizbeach. This guy thought he was being ripped off. Next time he goes to Yerushalayim, he says, "Tell me, why don't you guys give me to eat the tail? I heard it's the best piece. Give me." They said to him, "Who told you that?" Rabbi ben Betera. Rabbi ben Betera? They said, smart man. They kicked him out of it. So this Rabbi ben Betera, that's a great story, okay? This Rabbi ben Betera seems to be a Tana who lived after the Churban Beit Hamikdash. Again, so here we need to go into history. So some people say, okay, maybe there were two Rabbi ben Beteras. I don't know. Okay, there are a few sources that seem to indicate that Korban Pesach was going on. Now, you're all going to ask me, why the Korban Pesach? Why are we talking about perhaps Korban Tamid, Korban Ola? There are other sacrifices. Why the Korban Pesach? Because other Korbanot, the Korbanot that we give, like say Korban Tamid, Korbanot of Tzibur, where do they come from? We just did it last Shabbat. Shkolim from the Tzibur. We have to collect shkolim. We don't collect. We only do a zeicher the shkolim today. We don't do the real shkolim. We don't have real shkolim. But in time of Beit Hamikdash, you can only sacrifice those animals from the real shekels that everyone gave. So that for sure we can't do today. But Korban Pesach, you can give your own. It comes from you. So that's the discussion. So Rabbi Yaakov Emden, in source number 3, really understood that these sources seem to indicate that there were sacrificing Korban Pesach at the time without Beit Hamikdash.
Where?
What?
Where?
Oh, where? So what's your answer? There was no Beit Hamikdash. Now, let's understand. It's actually not too difficult to understand where. Why? We'll soon see. Again, this is a lot. You need a Mizbeach. And the Mekom HaMizbeach has to be very accurate. If you look at the Rambam on source number 9, flip over, Halach Aleph, the Rambam says, HaMizbeach Mekomo Mechuvan Biyoter. It's very accurate, where the Mizbeach stood. Ein Meshanim Oto Mimkomo Le'olam. And then he says, Ubamikdash Ne'ekad Yitzchak Avinu. And look what he says in Halacha Bet. We have a masoret, we have a tradition, that this is a place where David Shlomo, where Abraham Akadat Yitzchak. And this is where Noah came out of the Teva. And this is where kind of the Hevel, Adam Arishon. The Rambam, it's very strange. The Rambam brings stories in Halacha, but the Rambam is telling us it's very accurate. So we have to know Mekom HaMizbeach. So why isn't so actually it's not so hard to imagine how they knew it. Why? Let's say we're talking 60 years after the Churban. I don't know what the Churban looked like, but it could very well be that the Beit Midrash was just in ruins. Could be that if you went up there, you could actually see, where the Mizbeach lived, or where it stood. It could be that there were people alive that remembered exactly where it was. Nowadays, I agree, it's a little bit difficult to know exactly where it was. Some things have changed there, apparently. But in the 60 years afterwards, not so hard to imagine that they knew where the Mizbeach was. Not so difficult. But what were they missing, perhaps? What? Oh, so you could build a Mizbeach? Not so difficult. What might they be missing? What about Tumah? Tumah. They were impure. Tumat Hamet. You're not allowed to makriv korban Pesach b'tumat met, unless everyone is tamei, which Tumah Hutzah B'tzibur, which I want to go into right now. But look what the Rabbi Emden says. The Rabbi Emden says, I highlighted in black. You can see the second line. Omnam chachmei Talmud adayin ele mei chatat. In source number 3, he says they still had mei chatat. Efer paraduma, again. There's no reason to think that there was no red heifer water. Maybe you can buy it like in a Makolit at the time, right? With the badats, of course, with the badats on it. And they still used it. It's not so far-fetched. So, what else is missing? What would be missing today? So today we don't have a Mizbeach. So we would have to argue that we know where the Mizbeach is. That is an argument and discussion. I brought you on source number 10, the Radbaz, who lived in 16th century, that he says that he knows that the rock, the dome of the rock, the rock itself, right? He says that was Even Ashtiyah, where the Aron stood. Now, if you really say that's where it was, you can start calculating where the Mizbeach was, perhaps. Because that is a good indication of, you can make it around. So, this is a whole discussion right now. Do we know today where the Mizbeach is? What else are we missing today? We're missing Tumah. Well, going back to Tumah, we are all Tamei today. And last time I checked, we ran out of Efer Paraduma. But wait, which is not to say that we couldn't do it today. There's no, if we could really find a red heifer, every so often they talk about it. They found this red heifer, that red heifer. I'm sure if you look on Amazon, eBay, you'll probably find a red heifer.
But part of the process of creating dealing with a paraduma, you have to have somebody tahor to start with.
That's correct. How do you do that? Catch 22. Yeah. Yes.
I recall reading a number of years ago that I think it was like a summer shop somewhere, that little kiddie Kohanim from birth had been raised in a tumor-free environment.
I heard about this too. Yeah. Look, by the way, I'll tell you that this is not our discussion, but you should know that there are some people out there that are actually quite serious. Maybe they're sitting here. I don't know. That are really into this idea of planning the rebuilding of the Hamikdash. I was told, I don't know if it's an urban legend. I don't know if it's an urban legend. I was told that there's a group of very serious people, architects and businessmen, who have real plans of like infrastructure, of trains, of how the modern Beit Hamikdash would be, and they have like plans. They get together, and serious people that want to visualize how this would happen in the world that we live in today. How do you bring in 3, 4, 5 million people to the Beit Hamikdash? You have to have massive train. You have to have massive train system. I don't know. There are people that are thinking about this, and I think it's wonderful. By the way, I think it's like Rabbi Elazar Nazariah. We should always be thinking about this. We should always think about it, not just let it go. Even if it's not practical tomorrow morning, it's something we should be thinking about. But yes.
I think today you'd be accused of cruelty to animals.
Because that's never.
And you wouldn't be allowed to do it.
Yeah. So I'm not.
End of discussion.
That's why I'm not discussing that practicality today. That's another discussion, which I'm not going to right now. I don't. I'm not going to go into right now. Yes.
Isn't there the machlokes in the Gemara, the direction of the menorah? After 70 years, they didn't even know which way the menorah was.
But that's not going to be macking anything, right? That's not going to be. That's not going to be something that's going to prevent us from sacrificing. Other things would what else might prevent us? Yes.
Sorry, could one envision a Beit Mikdash that didn't have sacrifices and other purposes?
So that's another discussion, right? In the first year, we spoke about the different functions of Beit Hamikdash. I mentioned that idea. It's an interesting topic, which I don't want to go into right now. It is a topic. It's something to talk about. Okay. But right now, I want to focus on the korbanot aspect. Okay. What else is missing today? What else is missing? So Kohanim. Any Kohanim here? So how do you know you're a Kohen? That's like a famous joke, right? What?
I have a spear.
You have a spear. Pinchas. So that's okay. I don't know if that's a chazaka. But we all know the jokes about the Kohanim, right? You want to be Kohanim. Okay, I'm not going to go into them right now. But we have today Kohanim. Now, what can Kohanim do today? They can get an aliyah, right? What else can they do? Birkas Kohanim. Aliyah is not such a big thing because everyone can get an aliyah, right? Okay, Birkas Kohanim is big because they're making a bracha. And if we have a suffix that they're Kohanim, how can they make a bracha? So the fact they make a bracha shows something, right? What else can they do? Pidyon Haben. Also make a bracha. What can't they do? What can't the Kohen do today? He can't eat truma. Why can he eat truma? Tuma. So, and what about challah? He can't eat because he's tummy. And what would happen if? What would happen today if you can go to you become tar? Would a Kohen today be allowed to eat truma? No. Because the status of a Kohen, there's a big discussion about this. Kohanim, Vadai Kohanim, and what we call today Kohanei Chazaka. The Kohanim today that we have, and this is a big topic, is the Kohanim of today are called Kohanim of Chazaka. Look in the bottom, source number 6. The Rambam says, Kol Kohanim Bisman Hazeh Bechazaka Hem Kohanim Ein Ochlim Ela Bekotshei Hagvul. Like Truma de Rabbana. Aval Truma Shel Torah Chala Shel Torah Ein Ochelota Ela Kohen Miyuchas. The Rambam says that there are 2 types of Kohanim. 1 and 2. One Kohen is a Chazaka Kohen. He says he's a Kohen. Oh, that's good enough for Birkas Kohanim.
Never found the Sefer Yochzeh.
But that's not good enough for Truma. Now the question is what do you need to work the Beit Hamikdash? Do you need a Kohen Miyuchas? Probably. Or a Kohen Chazaka? What type of Kohen do we need? Now let's say we overcome that. There's a big machloket about this. Big machloket about this question. Let's say we overcome it and say you guys can be the Kohen, okay, in the Beit Hamikdash. But what do you need to wear? Bigdei Kahuna. Without Bigdei Kahuna, Kohanim are not Kohanim. They're avodas, not avoda. So what are you going to say? Okay, let's order in China some Bigdei Kahuna, right? What's the problem?
Temple Institute has everything laid out.
Yes, but what's the problem? What's missing? Tcheles. Very good. The Kohanim used to wear tcheles. In their clothes, there was tcheles. Right? Now here we go to the big discussion, which I don't want to go into right now. Right? Do we know what the real tchelis is today? Now, this is something that happened in all our lifetimes, right? 40 years ago, no one would say that we have tchelis. Today, there is a first time ever claim of a serious claim. There was claims before. The Ratziners claim they know what tchelis is. They probably don't. But there are serious people today. I'm sure you met them. You know them. It's very interesting because they come from our communities who really claim, and they're very convincing, that they know today what the real tchelis is. A tchelis is on tzitzis, you have to have the color blue on the fringes, right? Anyone here? I don't have tchelis on me right now. Anyone have tchelis on us to show? Can anyone? Here, I just want to show you. If that's okay. I brought my model here with me. Stand up and show your tchelis. See the blue on the blue around it. Excellent. So this is a new thing. This is a new phenomenon that we have. That people today argue that we found the real tchelis, and it's they're trying to convince great rabbis to argue that this is really the real tchelis.
And also safek midoraita chumrah.
So for tzitzis, the worst comes to be it's not tchelis. Okay, if it's not tchelis, you just spent 300 shekel for nothing, right? But for the bigdei kehuna, if there's no tchelis, it could be ma'akev. It could be preventing from the avoda. So here we go to another question: whether or not the bigdei kehuna would require. And I brought that, by the way, in source number 7. That's where the Rambam talks about wearing the begadim. And in 8, I brought down the discussion about the tchelis. So you see that there are many, and I didn't even talk about all of them, many questions that rabbis throughout centuries have discussed. In each one is a topic of itself, and a discussion of itself, whether it's preventing us to do it or not preventing, the tchelis, the begadim, the makom hamizbeach, the kohanim yuchasim, so many areas here that each one deserves perhaps a share of itself, which I'm not going to do, but just I want to throw at you the different questions that came up. What's interesting is that the Binyan Tzio of Ettlinger, Rav Yaakov Ettlinger, one of the greatest poskim of the 19th century in Germany, he brought up another question. It says in the Torah that the korban has to be l'reach nichoach yishel Hashem. I have no idea how to translate that.
Barbecue.
The smell of the korban must be an accepted smell by Kadosh Baruch Hu.
A good smell.
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's something that God says, something that I like, I accept. However, the Tochecha, it says that at Galut, once the temple is destroyed, velo ariach, v'reach nichuchem. Says the Bian Sion, we can't sacrifice the korban because God Himself told us, I will not enjoy the smells of your korban anymore. So he brought that up as perhaps a reason why we have to wait for Mashiach till He comes. The truth is that Rabbi Jachter, some of you may know him, who wrote many articles and books. So in one of his articles about this topic, it's at the bottom of the page, it's the last source on the page. He said that he asked the Rav, Rabbi Soloveitchik, about this question, and the Rav, he said, quoted the Rambam. The Rambam says that one of the responsibilities of the Melech HaMashiach will be to build the Beit Hamikdash. What? The same Rambam who we learned last time, who says there's a mitzvah to build the Beit Hamikdash, at the end of the Yad HaChazaka, at the end of Mishneh Torah says, it is true there's a mitzvah, but it's Mashiach who will be building the Mashiach. And he said, Rav Soloveitchik told this author that this Rambam shows that those who want to build the third Beit HaMikdash are incorrect. And then he said, he asked Rabbi Mital about this. Rabbi Mital said, he brought him Rav Kook, Rav Kook said that the divine Akash Baruch Hu works together with what happens down here. If it can't happen down here, it's a sign that Akash Baruch Hu, as if he doesn't want it to happen. So these are, again, we're going back to theological questions, philosophical questions. it's very interesting here because there are obviously serious theological, philosophical questions. Are we the right time to build the Beit Hamikdash? Is it the right thing? Is the Beit Hamikdash, as some people just brought up just now, right? What is the function of Beit Hamikdash? Is it just a house that we're trying to sacrifice? Something much more greater that should reflect the where we are spiritually today, where we are religiously today? It's not something technical, right? Just, okay, let's build the Beit HaMikdash and sacrifice the Korban. Surely it should be a reflection of the religious aspirations that the Jewish people have, where we stand, and hopefully that should really create the building of the Beit HaMikdash. I will say though that not to sum up, but I would say one conclusion that I have from this discussion is something that we brought up before. That this year, I think, at least gives us the idea that we should all aspire to build the Beit HaMikdash. We should all think about building the Beit HaMikdash. It shouldn't be something, maybe not practical like other mitzvot that we are involved in, but it should be something that should we should be worried about. We should be concerned about. We should be thinking about what is this Mikdash, and where is its place in our religious world? When we talk about it, and Yiratzon, what does it mean when we talk about it? And the questions that were asked here are very, very good questions. What is the function of the Beit Mikdash? What are we supposed to do there? And I think that's something that should go together with the aspirations to build it. One thing for sure, we should all yearn. As Rabbi Levi says at the end of Sefer Kuzari, he says, the Beit HaMikdash, the Geulah, will not come if we don't want it, if we don't aspire for it, if we don't think about it, we don't dream about it, we don't talk about it, we don't daven for it, if we don't are involved in it, then it won't happen. There is some level, and I think that we all agree, of human involvement in the bringing of the Geulah. What is that level of involvement? That's already a big discussion and argument. I'm not going to right now, but man, woman, people, human beings have to be involved in the bringing of the Geulah, in the bringing of the Mashiach, and perhaps even yearning and thinking and learning about what we did today is part of the process. Oh, I have 20 seconds left. So, if there are any questions, anyone wants to comment or say something?
What's the answer about women? Are they obligated to?
The Rambam says they are. We said the Rambam says they are. We try to explain, perhaps, right? Why would that the contradiction as if that he brings up? But he says very explicitly that they are chayav. So that's simple.
Like you said before, how are we going to get the 9 million of us, and how many are in Chutz La'aretz altogether?
Well, the Gemara says that there was a miracle in the Beit Hamikdash. Me'olam lo amar adam sali hamakom. No one ever complained. Why? They didn't complain because they were so smushed, no one could open their mouth. But no one complained. So that is a miracle, by the way. The miracle that no one complained. Boker tov, everyone.
So with regards to the Korban Pesach, then really all that stuff doesn't apply.